Shabbat Shalom, welcome everyone. I hope you've had a healthy and peaceful week. We're going to begin our Sabbath evening service with beautiful duet, clarinet, and flute, thanks to Alma and Wendy. Let's continue with the nigun, a traditional melody, Eastern European melody, and the words are la 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 la. So we continue, as we always do, welcoming the Sabbath into our homes and our hearts. Let's turn in your prayer books to page 121 for a reading before we sing the blessing for the Hadlakat HaNerot, the kindling of the lights. Middle of 121. O source of light and truth, creator of the eternal law of goodness, help us to find knowledge by which to live. Lead us to take the words we shall speak into our hearts and our lives. Bless all who enter this sanctuary in need, all who bring the offerings of their hearts. May our worship lead us to acts of kindness, peace, and love. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kidshanu b'mitzvotav, v'tzivanu le'adlik ner shel Shabbat. Let's continue on the top of page 124 and we'll read together. We entered this sanctuary to welcome Shabbat. Within these walls, we sit surrounded by numberless generations. Our ancestors built the synagogue as a visible sign of God's presence in their midst. Throughout our long history and our endless wanderings, it has endured, a beacon of truth, love, and justice for all humanity. Its presence guided our ancestors to lives of righteousness, holding up to them a vision of their truest selves. Now we, in our turn, come into this sanctuary to affirm the sacredness of our lives. May we enter this place in peace. May holiness wrap around us as we cross its threshold. Weariness, doubt, the flaws within our human hearts, the harshness of the weak, let these drop away at the door. In the brightness of Shabbat, let peace settle upon us as we lift our hearts in prayer. Let's turn to the Psalms as we welcome the Sabbath every week with the 6 Psalms of creation. And we begin with Psalm 95. We're on page 130. The Chuna Ranana. page. We're on page 130. Come, let us sing joyously to Adonai, raise a shout for our rock and deliverer. Let us come into God's presence with praise. Let us raise a shout for God in song. For Adonai is a great God, the great ruler of all divine beings. In God's hand are the depths of the earth. The peaks of the mountains are God's. God's is the sea, God made it, and the land which God's hands fashioned. Come, let us bow down and kneel, bend the knee before Adonai, our Maker. For Adonai is our God, and we are the people God tends, the flock in God's care. Oh, if you would but heed God's charge this day. Let's read another psalm together in the middle of page 134. Sing praises to Adonai with a lyre and melodious song, with trumpets and the blast of the horn. Raise a shout before Adonai, the ruler. Let the sea and all within it thunder, the world and its inhabitants. Let the rivers clap their hands, the mountains sing joyously together at the presence of Adonai. For God is coming to rule the earth. God will rule the world justly and its peoples with equity. So we turn to our favorite song, or one of our most favorite melodies for Shabbat, Lela Dawkins, page 138, the words of the mystics who lived in northern Israel in the late 1500s, verses 1, 2, and 9. So if you're standing, because it's traditional to stand for the last verse, it's time to sit down and relax. And And we'll turn a few pages and we'll sing another traditional Sabbath melody, Shalom Aleichem, peace be unto all of us, O ministering angels. These are the messengers from on high who bring God's message and bring God's presence closer to us on this Sabbath day. We're on page 142, singing Shalom Aleichem. Shalom Aleichem, Malachei Hashalom, Malachei Elyon, Mimelech, Malachei Amlakim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Tzeichen Shalom, Malachei Hashalom, Malachei Elyon, Mimelech, Malachei Amlakim, Kadosh Baruch Hu. Baruch Milech Shalom, Malachei Hashalom, Malachei Elyon, Mimelech, Malachei Amlakim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Tzeichen Shalom, Malachei Hashalom, Malachei Elyon, Mimelech, Malachei Amlakim, Kadosh Baruch Hu. Let's continue with the words of the Chatzi Kaddish. We're on 144, and if you're able and feeling strong, you may stand as we chant the Chatzi Kaddish together. Yitkadav, Yitkadav, Shemera, Yamadi Brakirte, Yamlich Malchute, Echayechon, Uvyomechon, Ukayed Kol Beit Yisrael. Bagala, Bagala, Ubizman Kariv, Imru, Amen. Yeheshmera v'mevora, Le'olam le'olam Maya, Yitbarach, Yitbarach v'yishtabach, V'yikar v'yikramam v'yitnaseh, V'yitbarach, V'yitaleh, V'yitalal, Shemei Kedusha B'richu, Lela Mikol Birchata, V'shirata, Tushvechata, Nechemata, Tamiram Yama, Imru, Amen. Please turn the page and we continue with a call to worship, the words of the Baruch Hu. Baruch Hu et Adonai Hamorach, Baruch Adonai Hamorach, Le'olam Va'ed. We'll read together the first blessing for the evening service, page 148. Blessed are you, Adonai, our God, ruler of the universe, who speaks into being, skillfully opens the gates, thoughtfully alters the time and changes the seasons, and arranges the stars in their heavenly courses according to plan. You are creator of day and night, rolling light away from darkness and darkness from light, transforming day into night and distinguishing one from the other. Adonai Tzebaot is your name. Ever-living God, may you reign continually over us into eternity. Blessed are you, Adonai, who brings on the evening. Baruch atah Adonai, Hamariv Aravim. We'll turn the page, the second blessing, Ahavat Olam, together in the middle of 150. Everlasting love you offered your people Israel by teaching us Torah and mitzvot, laws and precepts. Therefore, Adonai our God, when we lie down and when we rise up, We will meditate on your laws and your commandments. We will rejoice in your Torah forever. Day and night we will reflect on them, for they are our life, and doing them lengthens our days. Never remove your love from us. Praise to you, Adonai, who loves your people Israel. Baruch atah Adonai, Ohev Amo Yisrael. Together we sing the Shema Yisrael, our affirmation of faith. Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad, Baruch Shem Kavod, Malchuto, Leolam Vaed. So if you're in your living room or in a comfortable place, you're welcome to be seated. We're going to continue with the words from Deuteronomy, as we always do. This is a liturgical piece, but not a blessing because it doesn't end with the words Baruch atah Adonai. It's actually an excerpt from chapter 6 of Deuteronomy. Ve'ahavta et Adonai Elohecha b'chol levavecha v'chol nafshecha v'chol Yu hadvarim ha'ela asher anochi metzavcha hayom al levavecha v'shnatam levanecha v'dibarta bam v'shivtecha bebeitecha v'lechtecha v'derech v'shachpecha u'komecha v'shartam leot al yadecha v'hayu letotafot bein enecha v'uktaptam al mezuzot beitecha v'visharecha L'man tizkaru v'asitem et kol mitzvotai v'yitem kedoshim le'Elohechem. Ani Adonai Elohechem asher hotzeti etchem me'eretz Mitzrayim liot lachem le'Elohim. Ani Adonai Elohechem. You shall love Adonai your God with all your heart, with all your soul, and with all your might. Take to heart these instructions with which I charge you this day. Impress them upon your children. Recite them when you stay at home, when you are away, when you lie down, and when you get up. Bind them as a sign on your hand. Let them serve as a symbol on your forehead. Inscribe them on the doorposts of your house and on your gates. Thus you shall remember to observe all my commandments and to be holy to your God. I am Adonai your God, who brought you out of the land of Egypt to be your God. I am Adonai your God. Adonai Elohechem Emet. Let's turn to the beautiful words from the book of Exodus. Mi chamocha ba'elim Adonai, who is like you, O God, among all of the other gods that are worshipped. The words that Moses and Miriam sang at the shores of the Red Sea. So we come to a very beautiful prayer, the Hashkivenu, which has a special text for Sabbath evening. We ask God for protection from the night's shadows, and particularly from our enemies, from illness, from plagues, from famine and sorrow. Rudy and Alma are going to share with us a gorgeous flute duet for the Hashkivenu. The Hebrew is on page 160. Let's turn over to 162, and we're going to sing together the Vishamra, also words from the book of Exodus, to remind us to keep the Sabbath, engage with the Sabbath. It is the sign of the ultimate covenant, the contract, the deal that God made with Abraham and Sarah a long time ago, that we shall all rest and enjoy a day of rest, just as God rested on the Sabbath day. Page 162. So we come to the core material, so to speak, the 7 essential blessings of the Sabbath day. And they begin on page 164 with words of beseeching God from Psalm 51. So if you're able, stand up and sing with us, or else relax and enjoy the prayers together in the comfort of your own chair. We're on page 164 in our prayer books. Adonai sefatan kitam uvia v'teilatecha. Adonai, open up my lips, that my mouth may declare your praise. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu, Elohei Avotenu v'imotenu,
Sarah, Elohei Yaakov, Elohei Sarah, Elohei Rivka, Elohei Rachel, Elohei Leah, Ha'el HaGadol HaGibor HaNorah, Elyon, Gomer Chazadim Tovim, Vekonei HaKol, Vezocher Hashem Avot Imahor, Umevei Gula Livnei Leman Shemo Re'ahava, Melech Ozer U'Moshiach U'Magen, Baruch atah Adonai, Magen Avraham B'tzrat Sarah. Page 168. Atah Golelam Adonai, Mechayeh Kol Adarav L'Hoshia, Metaker Ha'im B'chesed, Mechayeh Hakol B'rachamim Rabim, Zomet Noflim V'Rofeh Cholim, Umatir Asurim, Umekayem Emunato B'Shelei Afar, Michamocha Lal Gevurot, Umidom Elach, Melech Mimi, Umechayeh, Umasmiach Yeshua, Leman Atah, V'Chayot HaKol, Baruch atah Adonai, Mechayeh HaKol.
We're on page 170. In the middle of the page, we're reading in English the third blessing. You are holy, your name is holy, and those who are holy praise you every day. Blessed are you, Adonai, the holy God. Baruch atah Adonai, Ha'el HaKadosh. Let's all be seated, please. Let's read this poetic rendition of the fourth blessing. It's in the middle of 173. It starts with disturb us. Disturb us, Adonai, ruffle us from our complacency. Make us dissatisfied with the peace of ignorance, the quietude which arises from shunning of the horror, the defeat, the bitterness, and the poverty, physical and spiritual, of humans. Shock us, Adonai, deny to us the false Shabbat, which gives us the illusion of satisfaction amid a world of war and hatred. Wake us, O God, and shake us from the sweet and sad poignancies rendered by half-forgotten melodies and rubric prayers of yesteryears. Make us know that the border of the sanctuary is not the border of the living, and the walls of your temples are not shelters from the winds of truth, justice, and reality. Disturb us, O God, and vex us. Let not your Shabbat be a day of torpor and slumber. Let it be a time to be stirred and spurred to action. Baruch atah Adonai, Mekadesh HaShabbat. And we'll read another version of the Ritzei prayer in English, page 175 on the top of the page. Ever-present one, may we, your people Israel, be worthy in our deeds and our prayer. Wherever we live, wherever we seek you, in this land and Zion restored in all lands, you are our God, whom alone we serve in reverence. Baruch atah Adonai, shotcha levadecha b'yirah na'avod. The blessing of thanksgiving for the gifts of this past week, we say together the Modim. We'll read on top of page 177. God of goodness, we give thanks for the gift of life, wonder beyond words, for the awareness of soul, our light within, for the world around us so filled with beauty, for the richness of the earth which day by day sustains us. For all these and more, we offer thanks. Baruch atah Adonai, hatov shimcha, u'lecha na'eh lehodot. So we come to one of our most favorite prayers, of course, Shalom Rav, the blessing of peace, asking for greater tranquility, peace for the people Israel, for all Jewish people, and peace in our world, in our nation, and all across the globe. The words are on page 178. For a few moments, take this time to meditate and consider prayers for your own family, for your own dear ones and loved ones, and for the blessings of all good peoples in our congregation throughout this country. So we begin a new book of Torah this week, as you know, the book of Devarim, the book of words, otherwise known in English as Deuteronomos, the second law, Deuteronomy, to be precise. And both this Sabbath is called Shabbat Devarim because it begins the book of Deuteronomy, and the book of Deuteronomy is also known as Devarim in Hebrew and in rabbinic literature. There's another name for this Sabbath as well, Shabbat Chazon, the Sabbath of vision, because we read a famous passage from Isaiah, the beginning of chapter 1 and 2 from Isaiah, which talks about his vision of the Jewish people. This is the first Isaiah, who lived probably in the middle of the 7th century BCE, a vision that was in some ways very harsh, kind of an excoriating vision, a very critical vision of the Jewish people, because the prophets saw the falling into polytheism, the falling into false gods that the people were beginning to worship at that time in history. So it's a disturbing message. In fact, the rabbis picked this really because this is a Sabbath right before Tisha B'Av. The 9th of Av will be this coming Wednesday on our regular calendar. And the 9th of the month of Av is the day, according to Jewish tradition, when the first temple was destroyed by the northern armies in 586 BCE, and also the same day, the 9th of the month of Av, when the second temple was destroyed in Jerusalem by the Romans around the year 70 of the new century. So Isaiah's message is, wake up, you Jewish people. Things are not so good as you imagine they may be. According to tradition, Moses wrote this entire book of Deuteronomy, which is just a phenomenal book. It's really my favorite book of the 5 books of Moses. The language, the ideas, all of the theological insights that are embedded in his sermons. Tradition says that Moses wrote the whole thing, all of the chapters, all the way to chapter 34, but he didn't write the last chapter because he in fact dies in the last chapter. So that's why we have the tradition that Moses is the author of the 5 books of Torah, the 5 books of Moses. So I want to concentrate for just a couple of minutes on one particular word, a word that comes out, is expressed in the middle of the first chapter of Deuteronomy, and it's also enunciated in the first chapter of Isaiah. And it's relevant to today's life, to what we're all living with right now. The word is Echa. In Hebrew, it's Aleph, Yud, Chaf, Hey. Echa. You gotta have a ch in there. You gotta be Jewish and pretend you're gargling. Echa. Echa means how. It's a haunting refrain. How could this be? How could the world be so messed up? And Moses, in his very first sermon, is talking about what has happened to the Jewish people over the last 40 years. And he's also talking about his own, so to speak, unpleasantness, all of the headaches and hassles he's endured. And he says in English, how can I bear alone the disturbance or the trouble of you, my people, and the burdens and all the bickering? And the Hebrew starts that sentence with Echa. How can this be? The heavy responsibilities of leadership have really pushed Moses to his limits. The second time we see the word Echa, as I said, is in the Haftarah. Isaiah is denouncing the people's sins. He's outraged with their bowing down to false gods. He's outraged with all of their intermarriage and all of their craziness and sexual improprieties. And he denounces the people of Jerusalem. He says, how is the faithful city become like an unfaithful spouse? The words are actually harsher in Hebrew. As I translate unfaithful spouse, in Hebrew it's really a harlot. But the important word is Echa. How can this be? How could the great people of Israel in the middle of the 7th century have descended to such a low spiritual level? how could there be so much depravity in that world? I don't know if there's any less depravity in our own world right now in 2020. And as a matter of fact, there's a third time when we hear this word echa, which is when we'll read this coming Wednesday, the book of Lamentations, and Jeremiah is crying out to God about what has happened to the Jewish people and what imminently will transpire to the Jewish people. And namely, we're going to get clobbered. We're going to lose the city of Jerusalem. And he says, how has she become as a widow? Meaning, how has we, the Jewish people, become like a widow or a widower when she was so great among all the nations? How we descended to this low level in life. So the answer, the question and the answer is, how do we turn the how into something else? In other words, how do we stop being victims, stop blaming others, and stop feeling sorry for ourselves when leaders, who rightly so, like Moses and Isaiah said, look, you people, you've really messed up. You've really destroyed what great gifts God has given you, and what has happened to you. The rabbis play with the word echa. As I said, it's Aleph, Yud, Chaf, Hey, and you can turn those four letters around and you can make the word ayeka. It's almost a homonym, echa and ayeka. And ayeka in Hebrew is a proper word which means, where are you? Meaning, what are you going to do about it? Where are you? So we could say about Moses, when he says, how is this happening? We could say, where are you, Moses? What is your problem? Why is it so tempting as a leader to sometimes throw up your hands and have a sense of futility? To get so angry with the people that you are serving that you just sort of cast them out. You lose faith in those people. You wallow in your own doubts. Ayeka, where are you? A leader has to endure and has to stand up in times of great service, in times of great trouble, in times of great decimation in the country. Gosh knows we're missing some of that in the United States today. And think about Isaiah's denunciation of the people when he says, Echa, how could you have fallen into the sin of polytheism and start chasing after false gods in the land of Israel? Well, we can turn that around also and say, Ayeka, what was Isaiah really doing about this problem? It's one thing to scream and holler and give great sermons. More importantly, what does a messenger of God, what is he or she supposed to do in order to change the reality that the people are living in and through? Remember, Isaiah was quick to say, here I am, God, send me. When God calls out from the heavens and wants a messenger, his answer, the prophet's answer in chapter 7 is, Hineni, I'm ready. I'll do it. I'll take your word. I'll take your message. But now, Isaiah, in this little passage, is saying, I'm so tired of these people. Gosh, they really mess up over and over again. And why would you care about our Jewish people, God, when look what we have done for the last 50, 60, 70 years? But it's not so much that we should lament about the troubles that we have. Rather, the prophet is supposed to really answer the question, Ayeka, what am I going to do about it? What is any leader, whether it's a spiritual leader or political leader, what is he or she going to do about a situation that is very troublesome? Speaking of language, since I'm playing with this word, I just want to kind of tie up this story into a bow and say that maybe the problem that you and I are dealing with today, since we're so bombarded with language, so bombarded with words 24 hours a day, you cannot turn on TV or your computer or any news feed and not feel as though you're inundated with news stories, breaking news, as if there's anything breaking about the news. Maybe carcinogenic, but not breaking. There's what I would call a delegitimization of words. In other words, words become almost meaningless because we're so overwhelmed with a plethora of words, with an avalanche of words that we hear on the screen all the time, whether it's cable news, big city news, little city news, that we kind of tune out. You know, after a while, the words don't really matter because we've heard too many words. Words become twisted. They become, as I say, delegitimized, which means words lack meaning. And to me, that's a grave problem because the Jewish world survived because we always believed that words have incredible power, emotional, figurative, literary, and spiritual power. In fact, the rabbi said, what distinguishes a human being? He or she is ish medaber. It is a soul who speaks. A person is a soul who speaks, meaning we are who we are because of the words we use. And I think we have to kind of think carefully about how we use words. And also be careful in our words not to get so angry and so short-tempered and so impatient with others, especially these days when the world seems upside down, that we lash out and flash our words at one another like sabers and swords. Words should not be slogans. Words should be phrases of teaching and learning and compassion. So when you think about Devarim in the beginning of this book, think about how important our own languages, our own speech, our own way of communicating with each other. When you're talking to someone you love, do we speak with kindness and understanding and a little bit of restraint, or do we just jump in and start blasting the other person? It's easy to go after the other person. It's easy to get angry at those we love. Let's focus more on understanding, listening, and being patient, and understanding that words are gifts from the divine. They are a reflection of the divine within us. Shabbat Shalom. So before we come to our closing prayers, we always pray for those in the congregation and our friends and loved ones who need special blessing for Shabbat, the Mishaberach. And we're thinking about Lynn Kelly, our dear friend and board member, and others in our congregation, Flo Vinnick, Doreen Hertig, Patty Bowes,
Casey.
my wife Casey and her family, and all those in the congregation. We hope that they will stay well and strong and be with us for the coming Shabbat, for the coming week.
Cousin Barbara Marigold.
And your cousin Barbara Marigold. So we're on 371. We're going to sing together and music with Wendy and Alma. Page 371, Mishaberach.
Limo
Thank you, Alma and Wendy, for beautiful music tonight, this day. And thank you, Lela, for recording the service for us. And remember, Torah study on Shabbat morning at 9:30. Just look on your computer and hit the button where it says Zoom. And on Wednesday evenings, our class is meeting here in the sanctuary to study Kabbalah. Actually, Wednesday of July 22nd. Tonight, technically, and next Wednesday as well. So you're always welcome, and we're endeavoring to record that so that those who can't come over to the synagogue can watch on your computer. So the Aleinu prayer is on page 586, and we'll sing together as I open the ark. Are the words that conclude this prayer. V'nema b'haya Adonai lemelech al kol haaretz hayom hahu yeh Adonai echad u'shemo Let's turn to meditation before the Kaddish. We'll read together page 593, in the middle of 593. The light of life is a finite flame. Like the Shabbat candles, life is kindled, it burns, it glows. It is radiant with warmth and beauty, but soon it fades, its substance is consumed, and it is no more. In light we see. In light we are seen. The flames dance and our light burns down in gutters. There is an end to the flames. We see no more and are no more seen. Yet we do not despair,
for we are more than memory, slowly fading into the darkness. With our lives we give life. Something of us can never die. We move in the eternal cycle of
darkness and death, of light and life. On this Shabbat, we recall during the period of Shloshim, 30 days of mourning, James R. Thomas, dear partner of our member Barbara Marigold. And also we recall Casey's uncle Richard. And on this, their yahrzeit memorial with love and devotion, we now recall the names of yahrzeits of those who have passed from our midst, whose dates are from this day, from this Shabbat until next Friday morning. Arnold Kapp, husband of Phyllis Kapp. Melvin Herbert Crone, father-in-law of Susan Crone. Chris O'Gorman, son of Jean O'Gorman. David Rubenstein, uncle of Barb Lamont. And Mildred Rubenstein, aunt of Barb Lamont. Mary Stanford, mother of Jolene Gear, and Max Waterman, grandfather of Barb Lamont. So let's turn, please, to the words of the Kaddish, which you'll find on page 598. 598. Yikadal v'yikadash shemei Rabbah, v'yamad yivrach yirutei, v'yamlich malchutei, v'chayechon v'yomechon, v'chayedechol Beit Yisrael, v'agalav izman kariv imru amen. Yehi shemei Rabbah mevorach, la'olam omei hamada, yitbarach v'yishtabach, v'ar v'yitromam v'yinaseh, Yitadar, Yitaleh, Yitalal, Shemei Kedusha, Brichu, Lela min kol birchata b'shirata, Tush b'chata b'nechamata, Damiran b'yama b'imru, Amen. Yehi shlama rabba min Shemaya, V'chayim aleinu v'al kol Yisrael, b'imru, Amen. Oseh shalom b'imromav, Hu yaseh shalom, aleinu v'al kol Yisrael, Imru, Amen. May the Holy One bring peace unto us, bring peace to our world, to the land of Israel, and to our country. Amen. Shalom aleinu, ve'al kol Yisrael, Yaseh shalom, Yaseh shalom, Shalom aleinu, ve'al kol Yisrael. And we'll conclude the service with the blessing over the wine, the sanctification of this Shabbat day. The words are on page 123. The Hebrews on 123. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, harei beri hagafen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kiddushanu b'mitzvotav v'rata b'anu, v'shabbat kadsho b'na'ava orazonim kilanu, zikaron v'maseh b'reishit, ki hu yom tehilah v'mikra'e kodesh, zecher l'tzilah mitzrayim, ki vanu v'chata v'atanu kidashta mikol ha'amim, v'shar kodshcha v'yama u'ratzon hinkatanu. Baruch atah Adonai mekadesh ha-Shabbat. Amen. L'chaim tovim. Shabbat shalom, everyone. Have a beautiful Sabbath and a peaceful weekend. Thank you. Shabbat shalom.